Welcome to podcast 43. Yes, 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 maybe, but yes.
Welcome back to another episode of Podcast 43. I'm your host, Chris Borg, and I'm joined with
Fulton, and we have our great third time Peter expert.
esteemed guest.
Reagan Jones over here on the third mic.
Let's go.
Always happy to fill in whenever a conversation about Peter Bogdanovich arises.
And I think we have just so much more to talk about since you last were here. It was, my God, nearly 4 years ago.
Jeez.
And
That's crazy. Oh my gosh. Whoa.
yeah, that was
What's really tragic about it is I think I was specifically recounting seeing an in-person Peter Bogdanovich Q&A.
Yes.
Regarding What's Up, Doc, which was in fact his final public appearance. But at the time, it was just like, wow, we just saw this living and breathing man in person. Surely a thing that'll happen many more times. But
It's-
look at us now.
look at us now. And I think all of us have just watched much more Bogdanovich since then, which is great, of course. And I mean, in fact, some of us were rounding out our filmographies this week. Like I caught a screening of Saint Jack at the Museum of Moving Image last night, which was lovely. I'd never seen that film before. And Fulton, you just watched Noises Off, right?
Yes. Yeah. I actually think it's a different film, but I think I would be interested in bringing it up later, kind of talking about common themes in his films.
A Saintly Switch is coming soon, I believe.
Mhm.
All of us will be watching that one, right?
Oh yes, dying to catch up with the TV movie selection. No,
What's
Fulton, it's interesting.
To Sir with Love too.
Oh yes, yes. I was going to chime in about Noises Off at the LA premiere of Squirrels To The Nuts, which we're discussing today, that I attended. Mary Lou Henner, who plays one of the leads in Noises Off, presided over the Q&A, and they were sort of talking about, the spiritual connections between the two films. So very curious to hear
I
what
think
you have to say later.
they all laughed, and Squirrels to the Nuts could definitely be a part of like a family of his filmography.
Was Louise Stratton there?
She was. She
Okay.
was. It was a very, it almost became kind of an impromptu memorial service where it was supposed to just be Colleen Camp and Mary Lou Henner sitting, actually doing the Q&A. And then they called Louise out of the crowd and kind of forced her to come up on stage with them. And then James Kinney, who found the film, it was a very just kind of impromptu, like, I think went for about an hour and a half. It was a very long Q&A experience. But we're really getting ahead of ourselves, Chris. I thought we should introduce the film. We start recounting the event at the premiere of said film.
So, so She's Funny That Way was Peter Bogdanovich's last narrative film. The last thing he ever released as a director was the Buster Keaton documentary, The Great Buster, a celebration from 2018. But this was the last thing that wasn't a documentary, and it was, to put it straight, it was sliced to bits by the studios. It was not his finished vision, and if you watch what came out in 2014, you can really tell. But it stars Owen Wilson, Catherine Hahn, Jennifer Aniston, Will Forte, Sybil Shepherd, Richard Lewis, Imogene Poots, and
Austin Pendleton.
Austin Pendleton.
The great.
I loved him.
Yeah, he was.
Not to get ahead of myself, but yeah.
So yeah, quite an ensemble cast all around. But this movie kind of came out to like little to no fanfare. It had financial backing by it wasn't Noah Baumbach was an executive producer on it.
And Wes Anderson.
And Wes Anderson.
Wes Anderson as well.
And they got like a full theatrical release through Lionsgate. Like I remember when this film came out, I did not know who Peter Bogdanovich was at the age of 15 or 16, I think I was when this came out. But I do recall like seeing this playing at the theater. Like it was,
You're like, I
a
want to go
fully
see
studio
She's
back.
Funny That Way. Mom, Dad, please come on.
Well, what I'm saying is the studio did manage to package it in a way that it looked like a normal, like Owen Wilson rom-com, like it did
Yes.
appear.
Very
You got Jennifer Aniston, you got, it looks very, very fluffy, and very commercial, and not perhaps indicative of the actual meat of what Peter was trying to do here.
Y- Yeah, I mean, and so it came out little to no fanfare, didn't really do well at all, was basically forgotten. Like, I would say that not a lot of people were talking about She's Funny That Way, and all of us in the Peter Bogdanovich fan base, we're all always we're quite dismissive of it. I would say I think that uh, in its current in the initial release of it, I just didn't even pay any attention to it. I was like, oh, there's these other Peter Bogdanovich movies that I know that I'll like and am more interested in, like Saint Jack uh or literally anything that he released.
Mask,
Yeah, Mask is a great one.
great film. Yeah.
Or At Long Last Love. But then all that kind of changed a couple years ago when a one James Kenny, right? Is that his
Yes.
name?
Yep. So,
Yeah. Who is a professor at the City University of New York. He was just looking on eBay one day and bought some mysterious tapes, and one of them happened to be the director's cut of She's Funny That Way, which was titled Squirrels to the Nuts, which was the original title of the film. And he wrote a really great essay on this entire experience of finding this film and being able to converse with Peter about it right before he passed away. And then he was
Which
constrained.
we'll put in the description of the episode as well. If you're
Yes,
interested.
yes.
It's very well written.
And he was very constrained, though, by what he could do with this film because of the whole rights issues. So he could play it at places. It had its premiere at the Museum of Modern Art in, what was it, 2022, I think. And then he was just playing it around in other places. And so finally, after all this time, everything was sorted rights wise, and it was given a proper VOD release on the 18th of February this year. So.
Mm.
And Reagan was
And-
present at the LA screening a few weeks
Which
ago.
was somehow, even despite the years of him touring it around, the first time that Squirrels to the Nuts had played in LA. And he did offer an explanation that, like, this VOD version that Lionsgate has put out it is a little different than the cut that he rescued. For example, Peter was very insistent on using mostly Tom Petty songs on the soundtrack, whereas now in the release version, they are Willie Nelson's son, Lucas Nelson, and his band Promise of the Real. There's about 5 or 6 songs by them that play throughout the film, which is in a similar kind of folk rock, idiom to late period Tom Petty. But nevertheless, I would be curious to hear. Reminds me a lot of the Mass controversy.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
with all the music of Springsteen.
The studio said the best we can do is Bob Seger.
Replace every single Springsteen cut with
Yeah.
a comparable Bob Seger cut. Which,
the
not
director's
the end of the world. The songs are fine. Yeah, the director's cut returned the Springsteen songs.
Okay, that's what I'm.
Yeah, they're back.
Will we get a director's cut?
There's some Steely Dan and Mask as well. It's a great soundtrack.
It is
It is for sure.
The Lucas Nelson songs, I would say at best, are like inoffensive. Like I have seen Lucas Nelson live. He's a fine musician, and this like vibe. I will say the one thing it does, which I enjoy, and this is getting into really inside Peter baseball here, but it recreates the effect that They All Laughed had of sort of the fun juxtaposition of like, all right, it's a New York story. We're setting the scene with Sinatra and like swing music and the very old New York vibe.
yeah.
But then we're interpolating that with like country music in kind of an odd, off-kilter way, very similarly to They All Laughed, which I really enjoy, kind of returning to that idea. And I mean, the similarities between this film and They All Laughed are
Oh
outrageous.
yeah. Oh
We
Mhm.
yeah.
could get into that more, but like
Yeah.
that's one of my very favorite movies of all time, and
Hmm.
you can't really pick up on the similarities that heavily in the truncated 2014 Lionsgate cut.
God no. Yeah.
She's funny that way. Like you really can't pick that up. But like from ground zero, from the
Mhm.
starting line in this version, it's like, oh wow, this is like very much a knowing kind of iteration on his earlier film. Like it
Like,
feels very clearly like a conscious return, both to the shots of the Brooklyn Bridge going into the city to start us off,
Mhm.
than to the two men looking for different women and the detective agency and all of that. Like, and immediately, including the same actor whose name I am forgetting, playing the head of a detective agency. I'm sorry, I've got it up here. Um, George
Mhm.
Morphagen, perhaps not exactly a household name, but
yes. Yes.
prominent in Daisy Miller and What's Up, Doc, and most prominent as the head of the agency, and They All Laughed, who has a very charming role here as Will Forte's father, who runs the detective agency in this film as well. So all of those little overlapping things were very, very delightful
What
for
it,
me.
what it what it feels like with the Lionsgate 2014 cut of this movie is Peter told them, I want to make They All Laughed, a movie that's very similar and in the vein of They All Laughed. And then Lionsgate said, the best we can do is you can make it like a Woody Allen movie, but not like a Woody Allen movie during like the Orion era
Yeah,
Allen. Like,
not Hannah and her sisters, but
yeah, not Hannah and her sisters
you will
or
meet a tall, dark stranger, perhaps.
exactly. It's like show me a tall, dark stranger, a Hollywood ending, whatever works.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's what we got. We have this horrid framing device in the original cut where it's an interview from Imogene Poots, who's the main. I would say she's her and Owen Wilson are basically the main characters of this film, but
Mhm.
in this one, it's even more centered around her because she's recounting this story that happened to her, and she's now a famous movie star to a journalist played by Alana Douglas, who is interviewing her for this magazine, and she's just explaining the story, and it's just kind of a weird framing device, and then they everything just feels so truncated, and it there's just no it doesn't glide.
No.
It
The
feels
the
very
framing
for
device is pretty poorly written too. Like
yeah.
they're trying
Yeah.
very hard to make jokes. There's a lot of one-liners. There's a lot of bits being attempted to be executed
Yeah.
that fall very flat.
Mhm.
In the interest of full disclosure, I know we would like to say, well, this is like, studio meddling, and it was, but Peter did get the opportunity to write and direct the framing device. Like it was Peter doing
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
but it was at the studio's behest. And it definitely is not his strongest work, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty easy
Yeah.
to say. It's also just so prominent. Like every
Mhm.
scene begins and ends with more Imogene Poots, really hokey narration. Um,
And I was curious if y'all felt this way, but I can see it being a studio note, like the stereotypical idea of what a studio head would be like. Oh, well, this film is too confusing, like it's not set up, so we'll put this framing device to like make the story more digestible to audiences. But I think in doing so, they actually made it way more confusing. Like the Squirrels to the Nuts cut just feels like, I mean, it glides because it's not always being interrupted by the framing device. But I don't know. I
It
felt like a lot of
introduces everybody at
whiplash.
the same time, kind of like it
Yeah.
feels like it's the way that all these characters are introduced is done in such a way that it feels natural and it
it's
also
very elegant. Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, so you don't have that with the other version.
It's just
Everything
like she's just like, oh, well, I met this guy, and they were connected through this, and I was like,
The
oh, what the
moment, and
hell is going on?
this is so specific that you'll have had to see the films to understand what I'm talking about. So my apologies to the audience, but I think it's a great example of the introduction of the Austin Pendleton character in the 2014 cut when Imogene leaves her parents' apartment in Brooklyn, and we immediately see him sitting across the way, inexplicably holding a rubber duck. without any context as to like who he is or why he's there, while her narration just feebly attempts to explain, oh yeah, I had this guy following me, but hey, I always like being followed. I like,
I'm amused.
yeah, awful, awful.
Also, Sybil Shepherd and Richard Lewis, who play Imogene Poots's characters, parents that are very like overbearing and angry. In the initial cut of the movie, it just feels like they're like screaming at each other, and there's no like rhyme or reason to. It's such a brief role that you don't really get to know anything about these characters. It was just very frustrating because it didn't feel like it had a point almost.
Over the years, as film fans, we've seen a lot of director's cuts. You've seen a lot of, well, this is how he really intended it, da 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 da. This is one of the most jarring, like the difference between the originally released version and the director's cut. Like it is
This is
truly,
like,
it's
this is like
45
Mr.
minutes.
Arkadin.
Yeah, yeah.
I was gonna say Justice League. If we're
it's
really talking about a butchering of a product.
entirely, yeah. Hashtag release the Bogdanovich cut. No, I mean it's kind of bewildering to look at the original release when you know what they were cutting it from. It is a fascinating lesson in both the editing process and in studio meddling to see how one could become the other.
To be honest, I actually didn't know, and you can probably provide more insight on this, Reagan, but I didn't know that like Bogdanovich and Sybil Shepherd were on good terms.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's a really baffling thing. I mean,
He's a ladies' man.
he is a, I mean, God, the layers of meta commentary about his own, I mean, what you could debatably call a sex addiction that plagued this man for his entire life. But like the fact that he was in the middle of divorce proceedings with Louise Stratton while they were writing this film about how this protagonist, who's a director, constantly cheats on his wife with prostitutes and
Gives them a lot.
money. It's just, you kind of had to take a seat upon hearing that and thinking about it, like the fact that she is co-credited as a screenwriter. So I guess you kind of get, the husband and the wife's side with the Catherine Hahn character and her outrage, and so, but it is very much in a similar way of They All Laugh, which is just like characters cheating on each other and sleeping around for 2 hours, and then all of the mistresses and all of the people coming together for like a nice happy night out at the honky tonk at the end of the film. And it's like weirdly wholesome, but also if you try and think about this in terms of like real life, it's like this is such just blatant wish fulfillment on the part of this man who's just like a chronic philanderer trying to think, and everybody's okay, but we're all just trying to make our way to our lives here in the Apples.
He still has he still has a nice
women everywhere. What a great world this is.
It's so great. It's so great. I still have my loving wife, and I have my 2 kids, and we go for a walk in Central Park, and everything's okay.
Yeah. And then we go see a show with my 2 mistresses that night, and my wife's friends with them, and everybody loves one another. It's like, yeah, Peter, that's how it plays out.
Yeah.
There's
Definitely.
if I could summarize Peter Bogdanovich's life into a line of dialogue from one of his films, it would definitely have to be, "I'm touched by women's stories," which is uttered by Owen Wilson. It's funny that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Sybil Shepherd, of course, also famously helped Peter with the money for Saint Jack, which she won the rights to that Paul Theroux novel when she sued Playboy for the nude pictures that they
that's right,
printed in their magazine without her knowledge. And that film, while she also assisted in the production and had the rights to it, she wanted it to get made, and Peter, of course, directed and wrote it, and then cheated on her with a Singaporean sex worker as they were filming it in Singapore. And that movie is also about a guy played by Ben Gazzara who just hangs around prostitutes. It's just really funny because it's like you just see so much of that man, and she's funny that way, and you could see it as far back as Saint Jack, and it's just, I don't know. All I'll say is that's pretty, he just has a way with things because Sybil Shepherd was like, "Yeah, I'll be in your movie."
I mean, I want to say she talked pretty nice. I mean, she was open about, I think, how they both were um had their moments of infidelity. But I think she has like a story about her hanging out with Elvis.
So she infamously cheated on Peter with Elvis.
Yeah,
That's
That's
right.
true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
But it's kind of
But
funny.
can you blame her in that case?
Yeah.
You get a shot at that. You got
That's her hall pass. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
He saw that sandwich and was like, "All right, I guess he knows what he's doing." So, but it's kind of funny how it all, comes back around because I think the movie that Playboy took stills from was The Last Picture Show,
It was the last
Yes.
picture show.
which is
Yes.
so wild. Yeah, I remember when I heard the St. Jack story and I just shook my head. I was like, Peter, come on, please, man. She's putting her neck out there for you, bud. But yep, that's Peter. So
So now I guess we can just talk about the good movie now. Squirrels to the Nuts. If you guys have anything else to say, speak now or forever hold your peace.
I guess the biggest thing we can talk about, and we should probably talk about it after we get done talking to Scrolls to the Nuts, is the ending of She's Funny That Way is
Yeah.
very, very different.
Yes.
It completely changes the heart of the film, I think. But yeah, we can start with Squirrels to the Nuts. Who am I to say nuts to the squirrels?
I say throw squirrels to the nuts.
I think part of the reason this feels so much like a late period Woody Allen too is the Owen Wilson performance at the core feels so Midnight in Paris. And
Yes.
his
Yeah.
execution. I don't think he's bad. I think he's fairly charming in the role.
Right.
Certainly works better with more space to flesh out and the extra 40 minutes provided by the director's cut. But
But all
No,
that
go
cutting
ahead.
can't save Imogen Poots' incredibly thick Brooklyn accent.
It's pretty astonishing. It definitely
it's
has
thick.
very like Margot Robbie and Babylon vibes. in
Which
terms
is
of,
it's surprising because I always find that English people usually do a really good job most of the time when it comes to doing American accents. But this one just really fell short. It was like she specifically studied how people from Brooklyn talked in like 1920.
well, I don't doubt that that was perhaps how she was directed. Also, I do. One note I did want to make is like obviously the film is very indebted to old Hollywood, down to the Clooney Brown quote that gives it its title, "Squirrels to the
Yes.
Nuts." But just in conversation and vibe and Peter's lifelong obsessions, I was very amused in how like the 2014 Lionsgate cut still tries to lean into that, like in the
Mhm.
dialogue that Imogene is given and kind of the opening and the way they try and make it feel like an old-timey movie or whatever, but just in a much phonier way. Like it's
Oh,
still
yeah.
obviously like an old Hollywood kind of movie, but like in the most just like corny and unconvincing way imaginable. Whereas
When
in Squirrels to the Nuts, it does have that, very much, screwball 30s, 40s vibe to it.
Mhm.
when she's talking about like Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire, and then there's like a picture of Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire
Yes.
dancing behind her head, like they super.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's right. Awful. Awful.
Ugh. Um.
But no, I think this film starts very strong. The Peter version, I should say. The opening credits are quite beautiful, and the arrival at the airport, that long oneer, is pretty cool. Feels
Reagan,
very. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I know you have some thoughts about Frank Sinatra's version of "Theme from New York, New York." You have your criticisms, and I feel like this film really used it quite well, and I think you
No,
agree.
no, I can't really offer any complaints. That was
Okay.
quite, it was like a real cold bucket of water on the face. You see a lot of, drone shots opening our movies and TV these days, but these are some very gorgeous vistas. That color grading is nice and yellow, and
Hmm.
It's more yellow in the director's cut, right? I
yeah.
don't remember it looking quite
Well,
that.
you don't actually see that footage, and She's Funny That Way. You
No,
don't
not
see
at all.
the helicopter
Oh.
shot going into the city.
Well, I
Maybe in
just
the
meant for the
film.
overall color grading.
That's true too. Yeah, the color grading is different. It looks
It's
more
different.
like hyper modern and
Yeah.
flat. Also, apparently, I read in the James Kinney article there are shots that Lionsgate like cropped, like because they felt Peter's coverage was too kind of old school, like the shots were too wide, so they were digitally cropping a lot of the shots. So
Oh,
even the framing is totally different, which works on a more subconscious level, just in terms of how he approached staging and all. But
Mhm.
that's pretty crazy that they were
yeah.
getting on that
Yeah.
level of studio meddling to be taking his shots and reframing them so that way, a wide shot was instead a medium or what have you.
Mhm.
Oh,
Um,
that's horrible.
yes.
I didn't know that either. Um, but this one opens with we're introduced to Owen Wilson, who just gets in from Los Angeles, and he's a theater director, and he's in New York now, and he gets to the hotel, and the first thing he does is call a prostitute.
It was a
Um,
long flight.
it was he needs to unwind. And so the funny thing is there's this really great scene. It is in both versions of the film. So at least Lionsgate knew that they needed to keep it in, but he's using the hotel phone to call the call girl service. And he's also his cell phone, he keeps getting called by other people, like he gets called by his son, and then like he keeps putting them on hold, and he's trying to juggle both phone conversations at the same time. And I just think it's a really well executed scene, and I really appreciated it. I don't know, I mean, that's I just thought that it deserved to be remarked upon.
No, that is a very effective comic set piece. And I should also note that in the opening there, upon Owen Wilson's landing at the airport, in the director's cut version, we are simultaneously introduced to the aforementioned Austin Pendleton
Yeah.
and God, that man's name, George Morphogen, as the private investigator simultaneously. So we're sort of dancing between these two stories, which is very "What's up, Doc?" Very "They all laugh," and sort of immediately establishing, oh, this is an ensemble film. There's not one
Mhm.
main character in this movie. You're seeing a whole, interlocking community, which is very much absent from the original release.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah. And he's like, yeah, you can see just through Austin Pendleton's character arriving and his mannerisms and facial features that he's a very neurotic person. He's and also on top of that, when you get to know him more, that initial scene in the Lionsgate cut where he's talking on the phone to the call girl service and trying to find out
Yes, in the bathroom.
where Imogen Poots, yeah,
So much better.
character went. Like it's so confusing in the theatrical cut.
You're
Like
like,
what he's
where are we? Who is this? Yeah.
there's no space that's established, and then you get to like see that scene play out more in the director's cut, and you see like, oh, he's running the water so he can like so it will like overshadow him talking on the phone so his like wife doesn't know who he's talking to, and he's like just it just gives us more space. I
Yeah.
uh I guess we'd also be remiss to talk about the other characters in this ensemble cast. I think Fulton,
Well,
you wanted to speak on Jennifer Aniston.
yeah, so well, I did want to say something super quick. I mean, I think with the Scrolls to the Nuts cut, like there's just so much more breadth and space to the editing, and I think it really just allows a lot more things to be fleshed out, but then they can just naturally run their course. But with that Austin Pendleton bit when he's in the bathroom, I love when he like is like, oh, okay, I'm okay. And then he like goes to open the door and his wife was like trying to listen in. So he goes like, oh, and then she like falls onto him. And then he falls into the bathtub and gets out of the water and goes, oh, and then it cuts. I really loved that. Every time Pendleton was on, I had a giant smile on my face.
I'll admit, while we're just showering Squirrels to the Nuts and praise, I mean, it's not a perfect film.
No.
Clearly.
Yeah, yeah.
And I struggled a bit with the Austin Pendleton performance. I did find that he was a little broad for the kind of muted style that the rest of it, not to say that it was muted, because, Richard Lewis is Sybil Shepherd shouting, and Imogen
Mhm.
Poots has got the over-the-top accent, but just like, I think the performances all could have been modulated a little better. I mean, the performances, the cast also reeks of a certain bit of studio interference, like the aforementioned Jennifer Aniston, appearing on like equal footing and billing with, a 70s character actor, from What's Up, Doc, like Austin Pendleton.
Mhm.
Um, clearly, I mean, maybe Peter was dreaming of Jennifer Aniston in the cast. I don't know, but I think he could have maybe worked a little harder with her to get that screwball patter down, because it just is like she's very distracting, I would say. It's like, wow, Jennifer Aniston is here for some reason. That's a big star for this movie, and then it's just like she's stuck with this dialogue, and it's just like she's trying. There are some good bits. When I saw it with an audience, when we get the first scene of her and her psychiatrist office, and she's doing all the patter about not revealing her patient's private information, and then keeps talking, and she gets some laughs, but there is a bit of a rockiness to how each respective cast member handles the tone and sort of old-fashioned comedy of the script.
When we're first introduced to her, she's Austin Pendleton's character calls her on the phone.
Yes.
And she's out in Lower Manhattan with Will Forte's character, who she's dating at the time, and just the way she delivers some of that dialogue, she sounds she's trying, the dialogue makes her sound very like kind of cold-hearted and angry, but I felt like there was not a lot of depth to what exactly she was saying, because it was delivered in kind of a stilted way, and I think it's also just because of how the dialogue was written, but it's like very much like, I'm sick of you, I'm gonna go now, and I'm like, I feel like she wasn't like giving me anything else about like, okay, why is Will Forte with this character? Like, I felt like it.
Well, he
there
does
wasn't.
say there's just something about her.
Yeah, that's what I call
and that wasn't in the Lionsgate cut.
Yeah.
I mean, her whole character, it reminds me very much of the kind of tempestuous Motormouth, like Colleen Camp performance, and they all laughed. That's sort of like, it's a very blank character, but if you get a suitably, feisty, Katharine Hepburn and God, Bringing Up Baby type
Yeah.
performance, you can make that
A
very
Hawksian
broadly.
woman, if you would say.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. She is a Hawksian woman. And I could see that working potentially, but just like,
That's not.
You kind of smile and you recognize, I see what you were going for, Peter. I could kind of, if you squint, that's the best you could give some of these moments.
But just like,
I get the vision. I understand what you were trying to do here, and I admire the attempt,
unfortunately, Jennifer Aniston is not that archetype.
I do think Will Forte is great in this film. He's given
I loved him so much.
Very easily say he's John Ritter and they all laugh, but it's like very genuine, kind of, earnest, schlubby. And it's asking him to play down. He's very muted compared to the more extreme comedic performances he gives in other films. And it's really fun to see him as kind of a like, charming but clumsy everyman. I'm not used to seeing this earnest of a Will Forte performance in a comedic film, so I really enjoyed seeing him stretch a little bit, and I found him genuinely quite likable in the film. And he's given way more to do in Squirrels to the Nuts than he is in the She's Funny That Way cut. You get a lot more of him, and I think he to use the parlance of our times, he understood the assignment.
Yes. Oh yeah, Chris.
No, I was just laughing at that.
That's true. Yeah, I know. So, I mean, Reagan, I pretty much completely agree. And so when we were kind of texting about it, I put out the idea, I was like, maybe Jennifer Aniston is miscast, but I also kind of think like if she approached it with a different acting style, maybe it would have been able to work. I just thought something about the way the performance is either coming through or the way that she's being directed to do it in a certain way or just the way that she's portraying it. It just felt kind of off in that it was trying a little too hard and it just didn't feel very natural to me. But I do kind of agree, like and 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 honestly, it's kind of funny to me that I thought Pendleton's performance came through a little bit better in the Lionsgate cut, because in Squirrels to the Nuts, he's very like you have those very
He's
more
got a lot to
heightened
do.
moments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and so like, and I'm thinking particularly like about a confrontation at the end that's very goofy, but I enjoy it. But I do kind of agree, like it sticks out more like a sore thumb, I'd say. But I just love the way like it just every time he's on screen, I really love it, even if it's to the film's detriment, unfortunately.
And what you're saying, I think, is exactly if we can put ourselves in like, Entourage studio exec mindset. Like you're
Hmm.
watching this and you're
Like
like,
we're Vinny Chase, we got Turtle.
who the
And
hell is this old man? Like, why the
yeah.
hell are we spending so much time with this old man? He can't act. He's
Mhm.
awkward. It's not he's not hot, It's not
It's
like
not
Owen
hot.
Wilson and Imogene Poots.
Mhm.
Um, get him the hell out of here. And but the issue is that you completely destroy the structure of the film and the rhythm of
Yeah.
the film. Like that's really it's not so much that I'm crying out for more Austin Pendleton. Like,
Mhm.
it's not the end of the world if there were less of him. But the way that Peter has structured this film, his character is pretty vital to
Yeah.
the ensemble nature and the connective tissue that
Mhm.
links all of these stories quite cleverly all together. I mean, I think to me the clear high point of the film is the evening where they all end up at the same Italian restaurant together
Oh
and the
yeah.
I
different tables
agree.
interacting with each other. I was like, this is an actual, like, legitimately, you know, big scale comic set piece where you've got all these characters in one room, all of whom are seeing each other with one another and having a really entertaining reaction. And I would say actually Austin Pendleton is pretty funny in that scene. It's probably his
Yeah.
best moment. He actually kind of,
I just want
got lots of
water.
laughing. Yeah, yeah.
Grab the
There's
water.
some
Keeps
great
pushing.
stuff. There's some great stuff in that sequence.
Well, we
And
didn't
that
we didn't
really is
really
a high wire act.
Mhm.
we haven't talked about Rhys Reese Ilfan's
The
character.
lizard himself,
Yeah,
Mhm.
the man
Seth?
who's Seth,
Seth.
Yes.
who's the womanizing actor who has a thing with Catherine Hahn's character, who's Owen Wilson's wife.
Which
And
I think she does great. I think she does an
yeah.
amazing job. Catherine Hahn does great.
Yes, I agree. I really did like her performance. And so
Yes.
there's this whole like, did they have a thing in the past? He's just always flirting with her, and that makes Owen Wilson very uncomfortable. And then, of course, that gets completely turned around when Catherine Hahn finds out that he's been sleeping with women for years and then giving them like a bunch of money so they can live their dreams. Yeah, what does he say at the end? Sir Galahad syndrome.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's great.
But what did you think about his performance of Seth Riz Ilphase? I know it's a Welsh name, so it's
Yvonne's is ill face how that would be pronounced?
Ifans, yeah, Riz Ilphans. Listen,
I was
one
like,
of my
maybe Chris knows something I don't.
one of my deepest, darkest secrets is that I used to call Joaquin Phoenix Joe Quinn.
Yeah, my father, I think, once
Hey,
referred
couldn't
to
be
him
me, Chris.
as Joaquin Phillips, which is one of my favorite
Joaquin.
mistaken
That was pretty
actor
good.
pronunciation.
Yeah, Chris,
Uh,
I'm just gonna just say thank you for hopping in front of that bullet, bud, because I'm going
I was also kind of wanting to talk about Reese, but I didn't want to be the first person
Yeah.
to say the name either.
Uh-huh.
He's fine. It's kind of an odd casting choice. Like when we, start in the airport and he's like on all these sexiest man alive, magazines and things like that. Like I don't entirely buy it. I mean, I am a heterosexual man. Maybe I'm missing out on the appeal, the bristling sex appeal of Reese Evans. But I find it a little hard to be like, okay, this is the biggest star in the world. Like I don't quite get that vibe.
No.
Comedically, he's pretty funny though. I think he works
Yeah.
well in that way.
And I think that all the business with the prostitute mix up between the two hotel rooms in the third act gets
It's great.
some good Reese bits there. Yeah. So not a standout, but does not hamper the film's success in any way, I would say.
Yeah, I was
Once you stomach that, okay, this is supposed to be the hottest and biggest actor alive, all right, sure, fine.
I just found that so confusing. I don't know. I just think like even if we are, I don't know. I guess like you're right. Yeah, like we're all heterosexual men, but I feel like even when it comes to like Silver Fox type of people, like they're like I feel like Steve Carell's more attractive than him. That's my that's
Steve Carell.
Steve Carell's an attractive looking guy.
Wow. Yeah,
Um,
close. That's an interesting. That'd be a good Twitter poll. All right, who you taking? Reese Ifan.
Or Steve
Steve
Carell.
Carell.
Yeah.
I just find this a little interesting. I did not know this. Just while we're on the topic of casting, Tatum O'Neal is actually.
She is.
Yeah, I
Yes.
did not know that. She
And
plays the waitress.
the aforementioned Colleen Camp is the worker at the department store when he
And
goes in.
And Entourage heads will love this movie because Debbie Mazar is in it, who of course played Sheena in Entourage. So I bet Fulton was really happy about that.
Yeah, I got so excited I passed out and had to rewind the film a little bit. But
But
yeah, sorry.
no, go right ahead.
Yeah, and not really a huge little moment, but I just thought it was funny. Michael Shannon has a little cameo, which I would assume he probably did just to be a part of a Peter Bogdanovich film. I feel like he's one of those guys that was probably sought out the production and tried to be a part of it. Um, do we do we want to talk about the differences between the Lionsgate and Squirrels to the Nuts cut of the ending?
Oh yes,
I think it's pretty if we're talking about casting.
There's an entire final scene in Squirrels to the Nuts that is absent from She's Funny That Way,
Yeah.
which is a little broad, and it does kind of feel like the ending is stretching on, but there's a lot of heart.
We've completely omitted like the whole like play. I don't think we've talked about it at all. Like
Right, the actual
yeah.
proposed premise of the film. Yeah,
A Grecian
kinda missed
evening.
that.
so
A Grecian
A
evening.
Grecian. See, there we go. I still got one mishap there.
That's the Bill adaptation. It's a Grinchian evening.
But Imogene Poots' character wants to be an actress, but she's a call girl on the side to make money for her family. And Owen Wilson sleeps with her, has a really nice evening with her, and gives her $30,000 on the condition that she'll stop being a call girl. So what she does is she decides to pursue acting, and she auditions for a role in the play that Owen Wilson is directing, that Will Forte is writing, that Reese Ifans and Catherine Hahn's characters are starring in, and it's a main role, and she does a really good job at the audition. Of course, there's a very uncomfortable scene where Owen Wilson is trying to try to steer it so she doesn't get the part because of the embarrassing history that they have, and his wife being there, but she gets the part anyways, and a lot of comedic hijinks ensue. So I just think we need to probably preface that.
Explain to the
Yeah.
audience what the actual premise of the film is. Yeah.
I feel like well, I mean, in comparison to Noise is Off, I feel like the play is a little bit of a back burner. It's like it is kind of what brings all our characters together, but I don't feel like it's thematically pulling in as
Something about condoms.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. it seems
Oh
pretty
yeah, because
edgy.
she
Yeah.
got pregnant. 'Cause she's a call girl,
She's a call girl. The
and the condom broke.
condom broke.
Yeah, she's playing a call girl in the play as well. Like that's the role she's up for. Very very coincidental, like much of the film.
Like much of the film.
Yeah.
And so then in the premiere, they're giving out condoms to people that are going to the premiere of the film. It's very condom heavy. stuff. But anyways, so the final scene in both versions are very different, where you have this wrap party for the first night, and everybody's together in the room, and like they're just talking about the play, and and then you see on the TV the like reviews of like how much people love the play, which is
I
I
really
was
like that
I
bit.
was saying this is so funny. Uh Such
When they're
late
reporting on
style.
like on the local news.
Yeah, they're like on New York One.
Live at 6.
An off-Broadway play just
The,
premiered to
the like
rave reviews.
that actually they were actually supposed to report on the fact that their mayor had just gotten indicted, but then it turned out that a Grecian Evening got really good reviews, so they figured that that would be more important. Um, but then they flip it to TCM, uh, probably Peter's favorite TV channel,
That's good.
and it immediately cuts to a clip of Ernst Lubitsch's Clooney Brown, where um the one of the main actors in the film, I actually haven't seen Clooney Brown,
Mhm.
says basically Owen Wilson's line of dialogue verbatim, about how some people want to feed nuts to the squirrels and other people want to feed squirrels to the nuts. And so
And
I
what's
say,
wrong with that?
and what's wrong with that? And so that was the thing that he told all the women that he was trying to seduce. And he says that it wasn't even, and then Catherine Hahn says it wasn't even original at that point or something.
Mhm.
And then we all have a great laugh, and the show runs for 2 years, and that's the end.
Well, and Will Forte and Imogen Poots, they
They fall in
decide
love.
to see where their blossoming love goes, and um, you get like a little in credit scene where you see that Owen Wilson and Catherine Hahn are able to kind of lead a healthy marriage, and he's in therapy, and we, like you said, the Sir Galahad syndrome, which I really feel like that really had to come from Peter. And then they're fine, and then you get to see Imogen Poots' parents throughout the film. They just like keep yelling at each other, but it's just because they're really into wrestling, and it has to be loud because it's wrestling. And I never thought I would see Richard Lewis and Sybil Shepherd at like a fake WWE kind of event, so that was pretty fun.
It is very inspired couples casting to have
It
those two
is.
as a married Brooklyn couple. It's
Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
special.
But in the Lionsgate cut, or were you going to say something, Chris?
I was
Sorry.
just gonna say, Reagan, do you want to tell us what the Lionsgate cut?
Oh,
So
yes.
there's kind of a twist ending to the whole framing device in which Imogene Poots is constantly being asked questions by this reporter. And she starts talking about how, since all the fracas with Owen Wilson, she has found a new man. She's the muse to a mentor type figure who loves old movies almost as much as she does. And what there he is right there. And then bursting into this little studio comes a strikingly dressed Quentin Tarantino at playing himself at mock speed, very full of life and energy. One of the more committed performances I've seen him give, frankly. It's a
Other
really
than Muppets Wizard of Oz.
yeah, and that was also very intensely committed. We should probably link that
Yeah.
in the show notes as well. But yeah, he whisks her away because he says he's running late to a Sonny Chiba triple feature. At which point, Imogene Poots turns to the reporter and says, "That's a kung fu actor," and then they go running off arm in arm out the stage door for their happy ending.
That
And then bam, dramatic cut to directed by Peter Bogdanovich, and then a really awkward post-credit cut back to the aforementioned Clooney Brown scene,
Mhm.
which the Squirrels to the Nuts line comes from, which I assume he just refused to let go of.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
they also, there's the clip of him in The Sopranos that gets played in both iterations as well.
Yes.
They're like
Yes.
watching The Sopranos at the rap party, and then it like cuts to the
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 scene where Peter
the quote.
Bogdanovich is, yeah.
But
Mm.
with the Lionsgate cut, like Owen Wilson and Catherine Hahn, they divorce. They don't end up happily married. Will Forte and Imogen Poots obviously don't really follow through with their relationship. So it just seems like all the main, I think the only couple that stays together in both cuts are um, Jennifer Aniston and Reese Fonz, um, which is so weird. Like I feel like to do that, it completely
It spits in the
disrupts the
face of the
film.
viewer. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I couldn't believe that because
Mm.
Reagan watched the new cut or the director's cut before he watched the 2014 Lionsgate
Yes.
cut.
Mhm.
So I said, Reagan, wait until you see, like this is your jaw is gonna be on the ground.
It's pretty stunning. It's
And
really
I
quite
mean, my
amazing.
jaw was on the ground, and I hadn't even. I just the fact that it just comes out of nowhere. It's so funny. Which I think they were good friends, right? Quentin Tarantino and
They
Peter.
were, and it's kind of a trio, like in the early 2000s, especially Tarantino and Noah Baumbach and Wes Anderson all were really, kind of try to, uh, push Peter as one of the greats again and kind of try and
Mhm.
reclaim him a little bit. And
See, I think Noah Baumbach maybe would have worked, been more
I,
believable, but
it would have made
still.
sense, but also, no one in Peoria is gonna be like, oh wow, look, it's Noah Baumbach. Whereas at least Quentin is one of the few recognizable filmmakers out there.
It's
Michael
true.
Bay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mr. Nolan comes running in.
Yeah.
No, it's fun that they did try. I mean, like on the They All Laugh DVD that finally got put out in like '04 or '05. It's like got a introduction from I think Noah and Wes, and I think
Mhm.
Quentin put They All Laughed on a top 10 of his, like an all-time top 10 films, early 2000. They were really all trying to band together.
Mhm.
And I think at one point Peter was living with Noah Baumbach in very curiously reminiscent way of how Orson
Orson.
Welles in his old age lived with young
Yeah.
Peter while he was on the up and up. But
I
those
know.
those guys all banded together to try and get one more for the old guy.
I'm just really surprised They All Laugh hasn't gotten a new restoration or
No, I
anything.
mean the rights are
Are they a
a mess.
mess?
Yeah.
There's so much music in that film. It's on HBO Max now, or I guess just excuse me, Max, and it is in HD, although it's probably like an AI upscaling, but it is technically in 1080p on Max if you're
I'll have
hungry
to.
for a slightly decent, more decent looking version. It is
Yeah.
pretty sharp.
Um. So I guess the last thing I wanted to bring up is, do you guys think that people are overselling this movie? I think I know the answer to what everybody's gonna say, but I mean, I think when any time that a work of a deceased director is discovered, there's people feel the need to maybe be a little bit more hyperbolic because you're not going to get anything else. And
It is a very pleasant surprise that there was something, decent to quite good buried within what was shot for this really bad film in 2014. So I think it
yeah,
is natural for there to be, especially given his passing and given that, I mean, God, what was the previous theatrically released Bogdanovich film? I guess The Cat's Meow.
the cat's meow, yeah.
Yeah, so it had been
Which I'm
15
a
years.
fan. I'm a fan of the cat's meow. I'll admit it.
I do
People
like it, but
like The
it
Cat's
seems
Meow.
more
I've not
like
seen
a
it.
it seems more like a TV
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
production than theatrical. And I still like it. I'm not trying to, but that was 2001,
Yeah,
2000
right?
was it 2003? Yeah, 2001. Wow.
Okay.
yeah.
Which is
So
crazy.
it was a 13-year gap until he got to
Yeah.
make another.
Yeah,
Um, and I think that was part of it's always I keep reading in all these articles about the film that it's like he refused to say anything, in interviews. He never was one of those directors who was out bashing the production company or the studio or saying, "Oh, they took my movie from me." He was always like, "Oh, we're very proud of this." And there
Mhm.
was some, back and forth with producers, but in the end, we're all very proud and da da da. Like he never expressed this, I think just kind of he was being humble and probably just glad that he got to make something and that it actually got put into theaters, and so
Mhm.
Yeah.
he didn't want to bite the hand that fed him. Um, But no, I mean it is being a little oversold by certain people online. But also it is a very enjoyable film. I think it's a good film, and if you're a Peter Bogdanovich auteurist, it's an incredibly rich text, both in terms of how it pertains to his personal life and also how it brings to mind "What's up, Doc?" and they all laughed and noise is off. Like it is, if you are a true aficionado of his stylistic and thematic obsessions. It really goes in all those directions. So it's a very, very fun thing to have.
I was kind of like, I should have expected it, but between watching this and Noises Off and everything else that we've done, I was like, oh wow, infidelity is so prevalent in like all of his films. It feels like. But I was gonna say, to answer your question, Chris, um it might just be the nature in which we recorded the podcast and we had to get ready, and I wanted to be educated on both cuts. So I do really like it. I think it is a good film. Um, I was a little tired of the story on the second watch through, but to be fair, like it
Yeah.
was in the same week, and I really tried to space them out. Like the episode that we did before this one was the Buster Keaton one, so I took a long break and did some Buster Keaton stuff in between them, and tried to give it a few days. But I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little tapped out on the second one, but I still like, I could see myself rewatching it in the future, the Squirrels cut, because it is such a drastic improvement. Um,
Yeah.
I think it's good. I think it's good. I do agree. Like I think we were talking about it, and someone sent a film Twitter thing that was like, "This is a life-changing movie," and I'm like, I don't know about that, but you know, like
Yeah.
it's good. It is it's a good film, if not faulty in some areas. But Chris, how do you think? Do you think people are overselling it?
I think a little bit. I enjoyed it. I think it's pretty good, but
Mhm.
I think when you look at Bogdanovich's career as a
Mhm.
whole, and when I look at the films that I've watched by him, it's still not in the top half. I think like
Yeah.
of course like Last Picture Show, What's Up Doc, Paper Moon, they all laughed. Saint Jack,
Mask.
Mask, yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, I would say this is better than the Cat's Meow. So that, that's
Okay.
Yeah.
because the Cat's Meow is very much like inside baseball. Like you need to like be really into like Hollywood, like old Hollywood
Lore.
Have you read
history
Hollywood
lore.
Babylon?
Yeah,
That one
it's like
section.
people that love reading Hollywood Babylon, people that know who Hedda Hopper and Luella Parsons are. This is who the Cat's Meow is for. And for that I like it, but it's definitely not something that I would say like, "Mom, Dad, you're going to love the Cat's Meow."
I mean,
But
I think it does go without saying, and I think we all agree, like it is amazing that we have this. We're not trying, and when we're saying that
no, no,
it doesn't
yeah.
live up, we're not trying to say that we're not happy to have it, because we definitely are. Like
Oh
this is
yeah, no,
one of the
no.
best
Yeah,
gifts of this
yeah.
year.
I'd
Very,
probably
very
watch it
grateful.
again and would
Yeah.
recommend it to any fans of his earlier work.
I mean,
Well,
I'm
yeah,
hoping a physical. I think James Kinney said they're working. Are they? Did he talk about that? A physical release at all, Reagan?
They haven't yet. They
Okay.
did say that there is a notable director who's not officially attached, but is very interested in directing a biopic of the Gershwin brothers that Peter wrote. So it would be a
Oh.
screenplay single-handedly written by Peter that would be presumably being made in the next couple of years by what they claim to be a notable director.
Craig Gillespie.
Oh, Flexor Dexter.
Yeah. What's the guy that directed the Liam Neeson film? Martin
Martin Campbell.
Martin Campbell. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, I don't know how exciting a Gershwin Brothers biopic is, but that's curious. And
Yeah. Well,
they are apparently putting together uh a few different book releases.
Yeah.
They're doing a compilation of all of Peter's little logs, his little movie note cards where he would write all of his things,
Oh,
and
is it
then
a
some other.
updated picture? What was it called? Picture This? I think a collection of his essays, but it
No,
hasn't
this
been.
is like his home collection of he was writing every time he watched a movie for since he was about 12, he would write down a
That is
paragraph on it.
fascinating.
He was doing letterboxed with a note card filing system in his home for his
That's
entire life.
awesome.
That's so cool.
So
Yeah.
they're putting that together, and they're also talking about there's that famous screenplay he's been trying to make since the late '80s, where it's like, God, remind me. I thought one of you probably remembers better than I do, but it's also just incredibly on the nose about like a man whose deceased lovers are like trying to contact him from beyond the grave or something or other. I don't know if he talked about it extensively on that TCM podcast a few years ago.
Oh God.
There's some interest in either publishing it or in still trying to get that made as well. So like they're going hard. They're still trying to run the Peter flag out there, and there is also apparently a feature documentary about his life and work that is
Oh
coming.
wow!
That
And
has
then
not
the
been
James
formally
Kinney
announced.
book. On
Yeah, so like there's a lot of scholarship going on, and
We're eating. Yeah.
That's great.
they're
That's
trying
great
to
hear.
excavate. Basically, they said everything he wrote or has in his collection, we are trying to get out to the public in some capacity because they know the interest is there.
And they should.
Us core few. So
Yeah.
it seems like
I mean,
we'll have plenty on the table.
Hopefully
We'll
they
promote
can
it.
start republishing the killing of a unicorn.
That's what I'm really hungering
Yeah.
for.
I
That's what
can't-
I would
I
give
can't
anything to
imagine.
read.
Which is
I don't know.
the book that Peter Bogdanovich wrote about the Dorothy Stratton's murder and how it affected him.
And the evils of the
and the
Playboy Corporation, which honestly is probably aged decently in some capacities.
I mean,
I would say yeah.
I've been stalking those eBay listings. I just haven't pulled the trigger.
It is available for $120 hardcover on Amazon right now.
And it's quite unfortunate that now, since the death of a unicorn is coming out in a few weeks, people are
people are going to be totally confused. That's right.
I hate to say it, but when I heard about that, I was like, no, they're not adapting. Like, I would have heard about that, right? Like, well, he has a book called Picture This, which was like a collection of his essays, and then it got like updated in the 80s, but the updated version is like very hard to find. I found one on eBay for like $100, and I just haven't done it yet. But then he also has like Who the Hell Made It, Who the Hell's in It, which those are like Who the Hell Made It's a little bit harder to come by than Who the Hell's in It. So I really hope that the machine includes those as well, getting those back out there, even if it's just like order to press. Like,
hopefully they can scrub that filthy profanity out of the title too.
Yeah. Why couldn't we call it Who the Heck's in it? Am I right? There's a reason for that. Who the heck made it?
Well,
who the devil is? I have it.
The devil made me do it.
Yeah.
Well,
Who the hell's in it? Okay.
It's on. You look back at your shelf.
Yeah, it's on my shelf. I want to get the other one. I only have that one. That's my only Peter book that I have.
Well, on that note, I think that's about all the things I have to say about P Bog. I don't know about you guys, but
last question: Do we or do we not think that he ever used that Clooney Brown Squirrels to the Nuts line in his own romantic conquest?
It's too specific.
It's too perfect. He had to use it.
There's no way in hell. Yeah. That's what I've come to over the last hour and a half. I've been thinking about this and like, no, totally. That's just like embarrassingly autobiographical.
It's perfect because it's like for somebody that's a womanizer, but also like loves movies. He loves women and movies. One could argue about the same,
about equally passions. Yeah.
And it's like he heard that line in Clooney Brown and he said, I need to use this because I'm going to use this line on people and they're not going to know what I'm talking about. The only person that would know is Polly Platt, who we are.
Right.
But all the women that like, you can't be that well versed in Lubitsch. Most people aren't that well versed in Lubitsch. So it's too specific. He had to have used it. Yeah.
It's also not that perfect of a line. Like it's odd in the way that it would be if you were trying to pull something in real life. If you were just making something up for a movie, I think it'd be a little better. You know what?
Yeah.
Like it's a little like that's what is really working for these women. It's like no, that's just what he was doing. That's just like in his own screwed up mind.
I love the woman that works at the that they're at the department store and she runs into him and she's like yelling and she's like Squirrels to the Nuts. She like yells it. Well,
Mm.
on that
like
note,
Yeah.
That's
Thank you guys
Peter
for having
Bogdanovich
me.
one.
yeah, we'll be doing another next week. We'll be doing another kind of like filling in the we even though that there are some notable releases coming out, I'll still be coming back from vacation, so we have something else programmed. It's another one of those new versus old remake episodes. So until then, thank you for being on, Reagan, and
Thank you, bud.
we'll see you guys
Of
next time.
course. It was a pleasure. Thank you both.
Do we want to say
Yeah.
the
Okay, so we have our little catchphrases, and Cody's is keep on keeping on, but since Cody's, not on as regularly, you can say keep on keeping on. So it's like I say, okay,
The third
so,
chair, just always. All right.
yeah. So stay wavy.
stay safe?
Keep on keeping on.